We will never bow to hunger, not to their banks, not to their bombs. Food is not their weapon, it is our freedom." With those words, Ibrahim Traoré didn't just speak. He struck the very table of history. His voice wasn't poetry, it was rebellion. A soldier turned leader who ripped the mask off power and named its darkest truth. In the 21st century, even food had been turned into a battlefield. It all began with a single word, scribbled in the margins of a secret memo. Weaponize. Not oil, not gold, but grain. Hidden deep in the vaults of Donald Trump's presidency, a leaked top-secret document revealed the unthinkable. The plan? Turn wheat, rice, and corn into tools of domination. The target? Africa. And at the heart of the map, circled in red ink, stood one nation, Burkina Faso. Bread, the simplest symbol of life, was now designed to be a chain of obedience. A continent already scarred by famine and foreign exploitation was marked for another betrayal. Yet, history doesn't always bend to the empire's will, because standing in the way was one man, Ibrahim Traoré. When news of the memo broke, the phrase "weaponized grain" echoed from Lagos to Nairobi. For decades, Africans had been told survival depended on aid, loans, and charity. But the mask had slipped. Even their harvests could be twisted into handcuffs. Inside a dim chamber beneath the presidential palace in Ouagadougou, Traoré placed a single grain of maize on the table. Under the harsh light, he pointed and said, "This is what they fear. Not our guns, not our gold, but the simple truth that Africa can feed itself." Intelligence confirmed the memo was real. Drafted in Washington, circulated through the National Security Council, and designed for execution by food giants and private contractors. The strategy was chilling. Manipulate seed patents, control supply chains, turn food corridors into weapons against any African nation that dared resist. And at the very center of that plan, Burkina Faso, a small nation, yet the symbolic gatekeeper of the Sahel. If it fell, others would follow, but if it resisted, the entire scheme could collapse. "They want to turn our harvests into shackles," Traoré told his generals, "but a people who can grow their own bread will never kneel to foreign masters." Fear hung in the silence. To defy this blueprint meant sanctions, sabotage, maybe even war. But outside, the anger of the people was already rising. Farmers cried on radio waves, "We will not starve for Washington." Students marched with signs, "Bread is life, not leverage." Across Africa, hashtags exploded. Hashtag food is freedom. Burkina Faso was no longer just ink on a memo. It had become the front line of a new kind of war. A war not fought with bombs, but with seeds, soil, and sovereignty. Washington scrambled to deny everything. Spokesmen laughed it off as fake. Think tanks flooded media with headlines, "No such plan exists." But on the continent, no denial could erase the truth farmers already knew. Food had always been used as leverage. The memo only proved it. Then came Traoré's boldest move. On national television, he appeared holding nothing but a stalk of wheat. His uniform faded by desert sun, his voice unshaken. "They think they can starve us into obedience. But hear me clearly. Burkina Faso will not live on foreign permission. We will not let our children's hunger be traded in secret rooms." The broadcast shook Africa. Clips went viral. Commentators compared him to Sankara, the legendary firebrand of the 1980s. Across WhatsApp, millions shared the video with one line, "At last, someone speaks for us." Inside the palace, debate raged. Some warned defiance would trigger punishment. Closed borders, sanctions, sabotage. Others said silence meant surrender. Traoré listened, then made his choice. "They wrote a plan to weaponize our food. So we will write a greater plan, to feed ourselves and to feed the world." Within days, secret talks began with India. A bold idea took shape, a multi-billion-dollar grain partnership to bypass U.S. corridors, secure seed sovereignty, and guarantee steady supplies of wheat, rice, and sorghum. When whispers of the deal leaked, rage turned into hope. Villages painted murals of maize fields wrapped in Burkina Faso's flag. Children chanted his name at night. For the first time, hunger's shadow was pierced by a spark of light. The agreement was signed in New Delhi, under tight security. $18 billion pledged. Joint cultivation, seed technology transfers, shared grain reserves. For Burkina Faso, it meant silos filled by their own farmers, not foreign corporations. For India, it meant a foothold in Africa's heart. For the world, it meant Washington's blueprint had cracked. Markets erupted in celebration. Vendors lifted baskets of millet into the air, shouting, "Traoré has fed us." Taxi drivers honked until midnight. Folk songs burst with new lyrics, grain for the people, not for the empire. But in Western capitals, panic spread. Lobbyists warned, if Burkina Faso succeeds, others will follow. France muttered bitterly, "We are losing Africa to its own courage." But Traoré knew better. "This is not the end," he warned. "This is the beginning. They will not forgive us for tearing up their script. From now on, every sack of grain is a shield, every harvest a battlefield." Across the Sahel, momentum grew. Mali and Niger pledged their grain reserves to form the Sahel Food Shield. Villagers formed watch groups, guarding silos like sacred ground. Students organized grain guards in the cities, teaching neighbors the hidden power of food sovereignty. Graffiti bloomed on walls, "Our grain, our future." And then came the thunderbolt. At a high-level summit in Addis Ababa, Traoré unveiled a Pan-African Grain Alliance. 10 nations pledged shared seed banks, joint research, and grain reserves strong enough to withstand any blockade. He declared, "They planned to weaponize our hunger. Instead, we have weaponized our harvest." The room shook. If one silo was attacked in Burkina Faso, 10 nations would rise. If one convoy burned in Mali, 10 nations would rebuild. If one African child went hungry, all would feed them. Commentators called it a second independence. Western analysts dismissed it as symbolism. But symbolism was the point. For the first time, food had become a flag of sovereignty. And just as the alliance was celebrated, ships arrived, not only from India, but from China and Russia, carrying grain, solar silos, irrigation pumps, and digital trade platforms that bypassed Western banks. Washington's nightmare had come true. Burkina Faso had not only broken free, it had redrawn the global food map. From Ouagadougou to Johannesburg, from Parisian diasporas to New York protests, one phrase rang louder than bombs: food is freedom. Ibrahim Traoré, once dismissed as a forgotten soldier, now stood at the center of a storm, not as a pawn, but as a pioneer. Across Africa, children carried loaves baked from their own soil. Farmers once bent under contracts now stood as guardians of sovereignty. Silos rose as fortresses of independence. And through it all, his words echoed. "We did not ask permission to be free. We stood up and claimed it." Burkina Faso had proved the unthinkable. Food could be turned from a weapon of control into a banner of liberation. A single grain of resistance had grown into a field of freedom. If this story touches your heart, share it. Subscribe to this channel and let the world know Africa will never bow its head again.